Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to that time of the year where we think about all the books we want to read in the upcoming year. So as I did for the past 2 years, I put together a list of 25 books I would like to read in 2025. So let's go through them all, let's talk about them. I organized them based on genre, and I will put the timestamps of each genre in the description, so if you want to jump around or you're just interested in a certain genre, you can do that. And if you're interested in all of the books I'd like to read, then you can just watch the whole thing, and I'd love you forever. I've got 24 out of the 25 books here. The 25th book I have in a box somewhere in my mom's basement, so I gotta go find that one, but the rest of them, I've got them here. My only thing that I wanted for my 2025 TBR was that I own all of the books physically so that I can attack my physical TBR rather than just doing willy-nilly any book that I want to read in the next year, because obviously we've got a lot of them. The first category of books I have here are sci-fi and fantasy. So just at the top here, I've got Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second book in the Red Rising trilogy. I read Red Rising earlier this year, and I think I gave it like a 3.5 stars. It was not my favorite, but I am very intrigued to see where the story goes. I have some predictions, some guesses as to what is going to happen, and so I'm interested to see moving forward how it goes. And I think a lot of people say this is their favorite book out of the trilogy. So we've got Golden Sun. I don't know, we'll see how this goes, but this is a sci-fi, if I haven't said already. The next one we have here is I believe fantasy mixed with romance, and that is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I got this gifted to me on my birthday by one of my dear friends, and I am so excited to get into this. The only thing I really know about this is that Emily Wilde is the main character, and I believe she is into the fairy lore and wants to kind of like make an encyclopedia about them, and then I guess gets herself into some business with a fairy, Wendell Bambleby. And I know that there is a romance, and I don't know if I'm making this up, I think there is some type of love triangle. I try my best not to get spoilers about books that I'm interested in, but you get them from time to time. So yeah, a lot of these books, again, I won't know too much about, but there's a reason why I want to read them. Then the last fantasy we have here is The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I read the entire Cruel Prince trilogy or Elfame trilogy earlier this year, and I slowly fell in love with the world, with the characters. And I know this is not a part of that trilogy, but it is an extension of the trilogy. This is Oak's, I guess, POV, who is like a sibling from the first trilogy, and I am just so excited to jump right back into this story. I've seen a lot of people either enjoy this book or say it's just not as good as the Cruel Prince trilogy, so I'm hoping for the best, and I'm excited nonetheless. Next genre I have is manga, and I just have one on this list, and it's technically not this book, but it's going to be Spy Family Volume 3. I have Volume 2 here because I'm going to be reading this month, and I want to continue the series, so I put Volume 3 on the TBR for next year because it has taken me over a year to get into the next book in the series. Meanwhile, I thoroughly enjoyed book 1, but I've heard this series goes downhill, and that makes me really sad because I own like the first 4 or 5, but I'm just going to continue reading it and see if I like it or not. But so far I'm really enjoying this. This series is about a spy who basically goes on a mission, and through the mission he needs basically access to a school, so he has to hire a fake wife and child. Without him knowing, his wife is an assassin and the child is basically like a mind reader. It's hilarious. The first book was so funny, and I'm just so excited to get further into the story. The next collection of books here I have are all just kind of in the fiction, general fiction categories. Just at the top here, we've got Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. This has been on my radar for years, and I am so excited to get into it. I want to read The Raid alone this month so that I can read The Nightingale in the next year. It has been high on my TBR, and this is a historical fiction. I believe it is during World War II, and I've just heard Kristen Hanna's books are heartbreaking, to say the least. The next book we have here is Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? So I am kind of on a little quest to read the rest of Sally Rooney's, why am I not in focus? Sally Rooney's books that I have not read yet, and this is one of them. I just finished Intermezzo, I believe, last month. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and so I'm excited to get into this book. I don't know which one this one is about. I don't think this is a highly praised one. I think a lot of people enjoyed Conversations with Friends and Normal People more, but I could be wrong. So I just pulled up the synopsis because there isn't one on this edition. But it says that Alice, a novelist, meets Felix, who works in a warehouse, and asks him if he'd like to travel to Rome with her. In Dublin, her best friend Eileen is getting over a breakup and slips back into flirting with Simon, a man she has known since childhood. Alex, Felix, Eileen, and Simon are still young, but life is catching up with them. They desire each other, they delude each other, they get together, they break apart, they have sex, they worry about sex, they worry about their friendships and the world they live in. Are they standing in the last lighted room before the darkness, bearing witness to something? Will they find a way to believe in a beautiful world? Oh, interesting. So it looks like it's just going to be a straight character study. The next book I have here is 8,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. I read The Kite Runner 2 years ago. Obsessed. I loved it so much. It was so heartbreaking at the same time. And I've heard 1,000 Splendid Suns is just as good, and I believe it. So I am excited to get into this book as well. I don't remember if, I feel like this might be about the war as well. And again, this one does not have a synopsis on it. So it looks like it's a bond between two women through some tragedy and through the war of when Taliban rules over Afghanistan. Sounds like it's just going to be as heartbreaking as The Kite Runner. The next book I am so excited for, and that is Britt Marie Was Here by Fredrik Backman. Long story short, I've said it many times, Fredrik Backman is one of my favorite authors, if not my favorite author currently. And I have quite a few of his books I have not read yet that I've been keeping and holding on to because I don't want to finish all of his backlist. But as his new book is coming out in 2025, I decided, okay, it's time. I can go ahead and read more of his books. So I actually wanted to add on My Grandmother Sends Her Regards and Apologies on this list, but then looking into that book, apparently this book is connected to that story and you're supposed to read this one first. So that is why this is on my 25 in 2025. I don't know exactly what this book is about, but with Fredrik Backman's books, I don't even need to know what they're about. I know I will enjoy them, but it seems like it is about a woman who basically has put people ahead of herself her entire life, and then she doesn't know if it's too late for her to change. So I'm excited. The next book I have in my fiction category is Night Crawling by Lila Motley. This cover is always so intriguing to me. I always see it on my bookshelf and say, I should read that next, but I never do. So I decided to put it on my TBR so that I have more of a push to pick it up. In the small blurb here, it says, a dazzling novel about a young Black woman who walks the streets of Oakland, a debut that announces a blazingly original voice. It looks like there's gonna be some interesting things about this book. I've heard fantastic things about it, and I am just so excited to finally get to this book. Next, we've got one nonfiction. I find that every year I'm putting nonfiction on my TBR and I'm not getting to them. So I decided I'm just gonna do one for 2025, and that is Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. This is a book all about fungi and how fungi makes our worlds, changes our minds, and shapes our futures. I love learning about Mother Nature and everything that comes with it. And so, oh my God, there's like literally pictures in here. I've had this book for I think about a year now, and I'm just so excited to get into it. This past year I read Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and that really got me into kind of more books about Mother Nature and Indigenous teachings. And so this one feels like it's straight up my alley, and I'm so excited to read it. And I've heard literally only fantastic things about this book. Next, I've got 3 romances. So the first one we've got is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Again, this is a romance I've heard only amazing things about, and what really bumped it up to my TBR is when Emma from Observing Emma was raving about this book more than one time. I was like, okay, I finally need to get it and read it. And it is basically a book about 2 authors who I believe meet once, and then for years to come they kind of leave messages in their books to each other. I don't know if they meet again, but I've heard it is really heartfelt, but then I also heard people cry. So I have no idea what to expect. The next book I have is Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book, I think 3 or 2 in the Addicted series. I just need a push to continue the series. I now own, I think, almost the entire series, and I haven't continued it in the past year. So I just wanted a reason, you know, again, to continue the series. I was not a big fan of the first 2 books, but I am trying to push through because everyone loves this series, so I need to understand why. And then the last romance I have is At Last Count by Claire Ross Dunn. So I got this at a romance book pop-up. Was it this year or last year? I can't even remember. I think it might have been last year around this time. But this is a book that is written by a author here in Toronto. Me and my friends kind of stumbled upon this book when we were looking at all the books that were listed there, and it just, like, when we were reading the first part of it, it just seemed so iconic because, oh, I have a signed copy, because it is based in Toronto, and all the places that were referenced right away, we knew exactly what the author was talking about and the places she was talking about. So it just seemed like this is the perfect book. But I've heard, based on some reviews, that it is not a happy romance, it is more of a sad romance. So that's why I haven't picked it up. Next, we've got classics, and I told myself not to put a lot of classics on this list, and here we are. But to be fair, I decided to do only one long and hard classic because for the past 2 years I've put more than one, and I have failed every single year because it was just too much. So I'm just going to quickly go over the first one that I don't have right now, and that is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I've been meaning to read this for years. I guess this might be more classified as philosophy than a classic, but I am just intrigued by that book and I want to read it. So I, again, don't have the copy with me. I will need to find it, or I'll just buy my own because the copy I have is my boyfriend's copy, but I've just heard amazing things about that book, and it's been a book I've been wanting to read for years, so I wanted to put it on this list to give me, again, that little push. The next book I have here is Canary Road by John Steinbeck. I have been reading through John Steinbeck's backlist, and this is one that I have not read yet. So I read East of Eden this year, really enjoyed it, and I thought, you know, maybe we can go back to a shorter one of his. Canary Road focuses on the acceptance of life as it is, both the exuberance of community and the loneliness of the individual. John Steinbeck draws on his memories of the real inhabitants of Monterey, California, and interweaves their stories in this world where only the fittest survive. I just know this is gonna be good. It's John Steinbeck. I'm really trying not to point out my list, but it's really bothering me, so apologies for my Invisalign lisp. I'm still trying to get rid of it. It's hard. The next book I have here is The Post Office Girl by Stefan Zweig. I heard about this book through Melissa, the Post Office Girl, on Instagram, and then her handle on TikTok is Beware of Pity. She highly praises this book. It is a World War II book, I believe. World War One. I am so excited to get into this. I do not need to know more than I already do about this book. I just know it's going to be so good because I trust Melissa's opinion very, very much. The next book I also was inspired to read by her, and that is Abigail by Magda Chabot. This one is a World War II novel, and I actually also want to read The Door by Magda Chabot. That is on my winter TBR. I read The Door, like the first 10 pages, and the writing was so captivating, so beautiful. And so I am so excited to get further into Magda Chabot's work, and I've heard Abigail is a wonderful book as well. The next book I have is so near and dear to my heart, and that is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I actually read this in high school, and I had an English teacher in high school that I loved dearly. She really impacted me and shaped me as a person and got me into reading classics and made me feel like I was smart enough to understand classics. And so I asked her in what grade was it? Grade 10 or grade 9? Grade 10. I asked her for like a classic to read that was approachable, and she told me North and South. And so I read it, I loved it. And then she actually told me the next book I should read was The Hobbit, and I did not read that until this year. Crazy. I should email her and ask her for more recommendations. It's been over 10 years since I read this for the first time, so I really, really want to pick it up again. I just remember it being so dramatic, and I loved it. The next book I have is Notes from Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I thought maybe putting a short Dostoevsky would be more approachable on my TBR this year, but I've heard this one is a very dense read. So we'll see how that goes. So the synopsis on the back says, "I am a sick man. I am a wicked man." With this sentence, Fyodor Dostoevsky began one of the most revolutionary novels ever written, a work that marks the frontier not only between 19th and 20th century fiction, but between two centuries' visions of the self. From the unnamed narrator of Notes from Underground is a multiplicity of selves, each at war with the others, all at war with everything else. Wow, that sounds very introspective. The second last classic on my TBR is George Orwell's Animal Farm. I've been meaning to read this for years, my god, and I just need a push, as I do with so many of these books. So I don't think Animal Farm needs really any introduction. George Orwell doesn't really need any introduction, but I've been wanting to read 1984 for years, and I don't know why I don't pick it up. So I'm just gonna try to start with Animal Farm instead because it is smaller and see how it goes. Then the last classic is my big monster classic that I want to read next year alongside all the other books that I'm going to be reading with the Hardcore Literature Book Club, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Best revenge story apparently that there ever is. And look at the sun damage. I don't want to talk about it. You can see that I attempted to start reading it by tabbing, sections that I should read every single day. I literally also have tabs in here, but I never started it. We've got 4 books left. So the next section, I guess, is like thriller, mystery, spy books. So I have A Perfect Spy by Jean Le Carré. I don't know if that's how you say his name. So the story behind this book is that I bought this, it's probably one of the oldest books on my TBR. I bought this years and years and years ago, and every time I go to declutter my bookshelves, I look at this, I'm like, maybe I can get rid of it. But then I read the synopsis, and then I read the first page, I'm like, woo, that might sound interesting. And then I repeat that every single year, but I never pick it up. So I'm putting it on this TBR. If I don't read it by the end of 2025, I am getting rid of it. This is a spy novel. It says, Magnus Pym, ranking diplomat, has vanished. The chase is on for a missing husband, a devoted father, and a secret agent. Pym's life, it is revealed, is entirely made up of secrets. Dominated by a father who is also a confidence trickster on an epic scale, Pym has been controlled from the age of 17 by two mentors. It is these two, racing each other and time itself, who are orchestrating the search to find the perfect spy. And then the other mystery thriller I want to read is As Good as Dead, which is the final book in the Agricole's Guide to Murder trilogy. I have not read the second book, but I am planning on reading it in the next month, so I'm putting the third on my TBR for next year so that I actually finish this trilogy. The last two books I have here are little short story collections. So we've got Black Swans by Eve Babbitt. I bought this and my friend a copy, I think 2 years ago, and we were gonna read it together and we haven't yet. So I'm putting it on my TBR this year so I can get to it because I think I'm gonna really enjoy it. It is just a collection of short stories by Eve Babbitt that look back on the 1980s and early 1990s decades of dreams, drink, and glimpses of the changing world. And this will be my first ever Eve Babbitt. And last but not least, we've got an Alice Munro collection, Hate Ship, Friendship, Courtship, Love Ship, Marriage. This has been one of her highly praised short story collections, literally a collection of short stories that deals with the substance of adult life. And I feel like that will be such a fascinating collection of short stories. Those are the 25 books I'd like to read in 2025. What is your TBR for next year? Please let me know. I'd be so interested to see what is the vibe for 2025. I feel like this is such a random collection of books, but I, for more than one reason, want to read each of these books next year, and a lot of it is just a push to read the books that I already own, that I bought intending to read and very interested in, but I just haven't yet. So that's the vibe I'm going for in 2025. So thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these books as well down below, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!